Hi, my name is Anne-Marie Sassong, and I am going to present to you a parent perspective of private duty nursing. It's really easy for the nursing company to come in and tell you how much they need you and how important the services of a private duty nurse are. It's much different when you hear it from a parent perspective. So here's the problem. You can see on this slide some of the children whom you might care for in private duty pediatric nursing. Some of them have tracheostomies, some of them have ports, maybe feeding tubes. They have mobility devices, they have technology that they use. There's a lot of care that goes into caring for these children, and many times the parents do it all by themselves, and a lot of times they do it all by themselves 24/7. A medically complex child can create enormous caregiver burden in the home. It's been compared to PTSD, only unlike PTSD, which is about something that maybe happened in the past, this is a stress that's there every single day, all day long. I knew a family with a child who had SMA type 1. This child needed to be turned every 2 hours for their entire life, and this child lived 26 years. The parents took care of her. They turned her every 2 hours, and they were honored to do it. But can you imagine, just like with a newborn baby, you can't sleep more than 2 hours at a time. Think of how tired you are. Imagine doing that for 26 years. This becomes an enormous burden. It's a great burden to parents. Parents love their kids. I love my kid. But when you have to take care of a child with complex medical needs, possibly having health emergencies, possibly having care that requires you to be up, on a regular cycle, like every 2 hours. I mean, it wears on them. It wears on parents. And after a while, they just can't do it. They don't want to admit they can't do it, but they really just can't do it. And the kids get bigger. And it gets harder when they're bigger. Imagine turning a 26-year-old. So here's the problem. So on the next two slides, you can see some of our story, and I'm not going to go into every detail because this presentation would go on forever. But you can see if you look at some of the diagnoses listed there, any number of these can have life-threatening issues come up at any moment, such as the asthma, the anaphylactic allergies, the seizures. It can keep you on your toes, and sometimes you're even scared to sleep because you don't know what's going to happen overnight. You're going to wake up and your kid's still there, which means maybe you're going to sleep in his room or he's going to sleep in your bed, but then they get bigger and that's hard to do. My son also has cognitive disabilities and he has autism. So not only am I dealing with a kid with complex medical issues, but I'm dealing with a kid who doesn't understand and who can't communicate. That in itself is extremely tiring on a parent. It just wears on you. Day in and day out, you see your child suffering and you can't even really talk to them or understand what they're going through. You feel so alone. I always felt so alone. I had a very busy social life before I had a medically complex child. I had lots of friends, lots of people that I would see on a daily basis. The more involved I became in his medical care and all his medical appointments, the less people I was able to see. And over time, those relationships tend to fade away and you're left very much alone. A lot of times when there would be a crisis, I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know where to go. I wished I could just have some kind of helper who would have given me advice and said, okay, this is what you need to do in this situation. This one needs the pediatrician. This one needs the ER. A lot of times I really didn't know what to do. But on top of that, I just felt isolated. See some more pictures here as my son started to grow up. And unfortunately, due to the autism and the seizures and some of the other issues, the limbic encephalitis most prominently, he started to develop aggressive episodes. And you want to talk about feeling like you're alone when you have a child that's aggressive or who can have a behavior explosion at any moment. I couldn't go anywhere. Not only was I isolated socially, but then I was isolated physically as well. I was stuck in my home all the time. I could not take him anywhere because I didn't know, first of all, when he was going to have a seizure or an anaphylactic reaction. But now I also didn't know if he was going to have some kind of aggressive episode and start, you know, scratching my arms or whatever he felt like doing at that moment because his brain just wasn't working right. So again, very, very alone. And I know my son isn't the typical child that you would see in private duty nursing. Most of the time they're wheelchair bound. I shouldn't say most of the time, but much of the time they're wheelchair bound or they're on a feeding tube or they have a tracheostomy. My son doesn't have any of those, though he was formula fed for most of his life. He was able to get it either by syringes or just drink it orally. But he had other challenges. But what I really want you to see is how alone you can feel as a parent when you're dealing with these medical issues. So here's the good news. With private duty nursing, families are never alone. It's so great now to have a nurse around. So if something does go wrong, I have someone who knows what to look for to see, is this an emergency or not, or is this something that can be cared for at home? It's so great to have someone there to help care for my child. It's just so great to not feel so isolated and alone anymore. To be able to go to the bathroom without worrying about what's going to happen while you're in the bathroom. Take a shower. These little things that everyone takes for granted. And just to have someone there so that you're not the only one trying to deal with all these issues. So private duty nursing improves caregiver burden and the pediatric patient outcomes by providing private duty nursing to families of medically complex children. It improves the pediatric patient outcomes because, as you can imagine, these parents get tired, and the more tired you are, the more mistakes you make. So private duty nursing not only helps the parents, but it helps the child to get more consistent and evidence-based medical care. So Team Select Home Care, I am here as their parent ambassador today. And this is great that they moved into Marion County because prior to Team Select moving into Marion County, my son had been on the wait list for nursing for over a year. He had had nursing before as part of the pediatric extended care units, but when he became too old and too complex for those centers, then we were left without nursing care. And we had been on a waiting list for a long time. So Team Select just moved into Marion County this year. And right here you can see their motto, creating positive change throughout our patients' journeys. And their mission statement right there, to take every opportunity to do right by all, to provide high quality home care that delivers measurable enhanced outcomes for our patients, families, and physicians, while fostering a dynamic culture for our employees are proud of. Here's a list of some of the services that Team Select provides. So if you were to become a Team Select team member, you would be able to acquire a great deal of experience with a vast amount of different pediatric needs. So if you're looking for pediatric experience, this is a great way to get it. Everything from preemie care to traumatic brain injuries to feeding disorders and immune disorders, endocrine disorders such as diabetes. And this can be done at home or in the school or in the daycare. Nurses really can make a difference in the home. They can bring peace and joy to the children and family. When you have a home with a medically complex child, there can be a lot of anxiety just kind of hanging in the air all the time. Anxiety about the child's future, anxiety about the child's present, and just remorse and grief about the child's past. But when there's a private duty nurse there, that brings relief and it brings joy and it brings peace in the home. It makes a really big difference. The need is so great. So many families are on a waiting list. The longer that they wait, the more stress that the family experiences, and the child is in more and more danger of healthcare mistakes because parents provide care around the clock. You imagine how tired you feel after a 12-hour shift. How tired does that parent feel never being off shift? So we need people to answer the care. We, meaning myself and all the parents who have these children, we need people to answer the call to help. We need people who will come and help these most vulnerable patients. We need a family-centered, patient-focused home care team. We don't want our kids to end up in an institution or a medical foster home when we can't do it anymore. We need a collaborative and coordinated treatment approach by an experienced clinical team that's available 24/7. We need to never be alone. Team Select serves not only Marion County, but also surrounding counties. There are families waiting for staffing right now. Team Select is looking for LPNs and RNs to meet the needs of the families in Marion and surrounding counties. As a nurse, we have the opportunity to heal the mind, soul, heart, and body of our patients. They may forget your name, but they never forget how you made them feel. That's a quote by Maya Angelou. So I leave you with that thought, and I thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please contact Team Select at the number below. Thank you very much.